Stop answering objections too soon. Most real estate agents do not lose business because they lack an answer. They lose business because they give the answer way too soon. A seller says, "Hey, another agent will do it for less." A buyer says, "I don't want to sign an agreement." A client says, "We want to sleep on it." The agent immediately begins explaining, defending, presenting, or trying to close. The agent thinks they are handling the objection. The client feels like they are being handled. That difference may be costing you listings, buyer agreements, accepted offers, and closed transactions. Welcome to Time-Tested Mastery. I'm Mark Dolan. Today's principle comes directly from my Control Before Confidence training. Do not answer the objection you expected, answer the concern the client actually has. That requires discipline, emotional control, and a willingness to stop talking long enough to discover what the client is really thinking. Here is the principle underneath every objection conversation. People buy for their reasons, not ours. The agent wants to protect the commission. The client may be worried about their net proceeds. The agent wants the buyer to sign a representation agreement. The buyer may be afraid of being trapped. The agent wants the seller to follow the pricing recommendation. The seller may be afraid of leaving money on the table. Those are very different conversations. When we fail to identify the client's real concern, we may give an answer that is logical, accurate, but completely irrelevant. The client does not need another presentation. They need to feel understood. An objection is not an attack. An objection is not necessarily rejection. It is not automatically a personal attack either. It is often an unanswered question in the mind of the client. It may represent uncertainty, fear, confusion, a lack of trust, concern about value, or a desire to maintain their independence and control. The client says, "We want to list higher." They may mean, "I'm afraid of selling too cheaply." They say, "Another agent will charge less." What they may mean is, "I do not yet understand why you are worth more." They say, "We are just looking." They may mean, "I do not want to feel pressured." They say, "We want to sleep on it." They may mean something still doesn't feel right. If you attack the words before understanding the concern, the client usually becomes more committed to the objection. I hope you heard that. The goal is not to defeat their position. The goal is to understand the problem they're trying to solve. So pause before you respond. The first step is simple but difficult. Pause. Take one low breath and allow 1 or 2 seconds of silence. That pause helps you control your tone, pace, your facial expressions, and your emotional reaction. It also shows the client that you are considering what they said rather than reaching for a canned rebuttal. Clients know when you are listening, and they know when you are simply waiting for your turn to speak. Your response begins before the words leave your mouth. If your face tightens, your posture changes, or your pace speeds up, you may be telling the client that their question irritated you. That is why I call my program Control Before Confidence. Confidence without control can sound aggressive. Confidence without listening can sound arrogant. Confidence without emotional safety can destroy trust. So you can acknowledge without agreeing. After the pause, acknowledge the concern. You might say, "I understand why that would be important to you. That's a fair question, and I'm glad that you brought that up. It makes sense that you would want to think carefully about that." Now, acknowledgement does not mean agreement. You can acknowledge that a seller wants to protect their net without agreeing to an unrealistic price. You can acknowledge a buyer's concern about commitment without agreeing that avoiding a written agreement is wise. You are not surrendering your professional recommendation. You are showing that you understand why the concern matters, and that lowers their resistance. When people feel safer, they are more likely to tell you the truth. So ask, probe, probe again. Now ask a question, then listen. Do not answer your own question. Do not ask 3 questions in a row. Ask one question and let your client answer. Suppose a seller says, "Will you reduce your commission?" The untrained agent begins defending their fee. The disciplined agent might say, "It sounds like protecting your final net is most important to you. What were you hoping to spend?" The seller says another agent offered a lower fee. Now probe. What did that agent say that they would provide for that fee? Then probe again. How are you comparing the fee with their marketing strategy? How about their negotiation in the final net result that you expect? Now you are having the real conversation. The concern may not be about the commission. It may be about your value. It may be about their trust. It may be a lack of differentiation between you and a discount broker. You cannot solve the concern until you uncover it. The same principle applies when a buyer says, "I only make low offers." Instead of arguing, ask, "How did you determine what a property is really worth?" Then ask them this: is your goal to get a large discount from the asking price, or would you like to buy below fair market value and get built-in equity? Those are not the same thing. A buyer can get $50,000 off an inflated asking price and still overpay. They can also pay full asking price and purchase a property below market value. A professional helps the client distinguish price from value. But first, you must understand how the client defines a win. So summarize before you answer. Once you believe you understand the concern, summarize it. You might say, "What I am hearing is that your primary goal is to net the largest amount of proceeds you can, and you want to understand why paying a full service fee can produce a stronger result and higher net. Is that correct?" Then stop. Let the client confirm or correct you. The summary protects you from answering the wrong question. It also helps the client hear their own concerns stated clearly. People are often reacting to an emotion they have not fully defined. Your summary helps organize the conversation. Then explain, recommend, and confirm. Only after you understand the objection should you explain. Use a clear structure. PREP, point, reason, example, point, or the problem, cause, solution, or past, present, future. You see, structure matters because agents often lose clients through over-explaining. They answer a 30-second question with a 7-minute monologue. The client stops listening. The agent keeps talking. Keep the answer relevant to the concern you uncovered, then give a recommendation. The client came to you for guidance. Say, "Based on what you have shared, my recommendation is, the safest next step for us is to protect your position. I recommend. Now the decision is yours, but professionally, I would suggest," then confirm. Does that address the concern you have? Would that solve the problem you are trying to avoid? Are you comfortable moving forward with that strategy? You can also ask, "If we resolve this issue, is there anything else we need to address before you would feel comfortable moving forward?" That question matters because the first objection is not always the real objection. Closing ratios improve before the close. Team leaders and brokers often respond to weak conversion by teaching more closing scripts. Now, sometimes that helps, but many agents are not losing business at the close. They lose it much earlier. They lose it when the client feels dismissed. They lose it when the agent becomes defensive. They lose it when the answer sounds memorized. They lose it when the agent talks over their client. They lose it when the agent answers the question they wanted to hear instead of the question the client actually asked. Closing ratios improve when conversations improve. Better listening produces better information. Better information produces better recommendations. Better recommendations build greater trust. And greater trust produces more decisions. That is how the trust to truth method works. Truth always follows trust. Clients will not tell you what they are truly worried about until they believe it is safe to tell you. Practice until it becomes natural. You cannot simply understand this intellectually, you have to practice it. So choose 2 objections you hear frequently. Practice pausing. Practice acknowledging. Practice asking one question and remaining silent. Practice probing based on the client's response instead of following a memorized sequence. Practice summarizing their concern. Then practice giving a concise recommendation. Now here's the big test. Record yourself. Watch your face. Listen to your tone. Notice where you speed up, become defensive, or add information that doesn't serve the client. You do not practice because every conversation will follow a script. You practice so the skills are available to you when the conversation does not follow the script. That is the difference between memorization and muscle memory. For the individual agent, these skills can help convert more appointments without becoming pushy or manipulative. For the team leader, they provide a repeatable coaching structure that can be practiced, observed, and improved. For the brokers out there, you can create a stronger sales culture built on listening, clarity, trust, and sound professional guidance. Agents do not need another collection of clever comebacks. They need to have self-control under pressure. They need to think clearly when challenged. They need to recognize what their voice, face, posture, and words communicate. And they need enough practice that the right response becomes natural when the business is on the line. That is what I teach through Control Before Confidence and the Trust to Truth method. I work with agents, teams, and brokerages that want to improve communication, strengthen client trust, and increase their conversion without pressure, without manipulation or outdated closing tactics. The goal is not to talk clients into a decision. The goal is to become skilled enough to help clients make good decisions. When your agents learn to slow down, uncover the client's real concern, and guide the next step with calm authority, their closing ratio will improve. Not because they learned to push harder, but because they learned to listen better. I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Time-Tested Mastery. Remember, slow down before you respond, clarify before you explain, confirm before you close, and never forget, people buy for their reasons, not ours.